In this video, I'm going to show you how I gave my stock white Nintendo Switch Joycons a retro transformation with these cool transparent shells from eXtremeRate. Quick disclaimer that this is not intended as a tutorial. There are already so many videos out there that are excellent guides, and I'm not a professional in any way. I just wanted to show the process of me completing this project. So with that in mind, let's get started. So this is the clear black eXtremeRate kit, priced at $20 from Amazon. The kit comes with a left and right Joycon shell with color matched buttons, replacement screws, springs, and screwdriver bits, and a few spares, and a little fold-out sheet that has information about warranty, where you can find an official tutorial, and some information about eXtremeRate. There are a few additional tools needed for this project. I laid everything I'm going to use out here: a few plastic pry tools, a special limited edition Ashley Tisdale guitar pick, a bunch of containers to separate the screws out when I take them out, the screwdriver that came with the kit, and a couple of tweezers. For most of this project, I use this HOTO precision screwdriver kit. I've used this kit for a bunch of projects just like this. All of the bits you could possibly need are magnetized into this little compact case. The screwdriver quality is nice, and it's just about the same size as my phone. Each Joycon shell consists of 3 main pieces, the front, middle, and back. We'll start by opening the Joycon up by unscrewing these 4 main tri-wing Y-tip screws from the back panel. I did try out the included screwdriver and bit that came with the kit, and I can say that it's really nice and it's helpful that they include it. Once the 4 main screws are out, I use this plastic card to carefully pry in between the plastic pieces to separate them and gently open the back like a book. There are 2 tiny ribbon cables that connect the rail to the motherboard, so I have to make sure not to pinch or strain those. There's only 1 tiny screw holding the rail to the back panel, so I removed that and separated those. You technically don't have to fully remove it, but I am going to replace the SL and SR rail buttons, and I thought it would be easier for me to just take it off completely. All of the color matched buttons come in these plastic forms. You just twist them a couple of times and they pop right out. The SL and SR buttons were super easy to replace, but I almost forgot to swap the rubber inner pieces from the stock buttons to the new ones, so don't forget that. After finishing the rail, it was time to unplug the battery from the motherboard. I should have done this earlier, but I'm doing it now. It was a little difficult to get the connector to pop off, but after I did that, I carefully started prying the battery away from the casing. I'll be reusing the adhesive from this shell in the new shell, so I tried to go as slow as possible so I don't rip it. Next, there were just a few more screws holding the middle section to the front. It's crucial to be extra cautious pulling out the middle piece because a teeny tiny ribbon cable connecting the ZL trigger to the main board folds in between the 2 pieces. Thankfully, it's just a simple pop of a switch, and you can carefully disconnect it and separate those 2 shell pieces. I went ahead and took out the L bumper button, mindful of the spring inside of it, and then moved on to disconnecting the HD rumble module. I would say this was the most difficult part of the process for me because I couldn't seem to get a good grip of the tiny plug, and the wires are super delicate. The module itself came out with just a little bit of pulling. In this next part, I unplug and unscrew the trigger button and joysticks from the casing and pull the joystick out. It's a little out of focus here, so sorry for that. Thankfully, I don't have any drifting issues from either of my Joy-Cons, so I'm just going to keep the stock ones for both. I quickly transfer over the dust cover for the joystick to the new shell. Then there's just a few more screws holding the motherboard to the front panel. Once those are out, I can pull the motherboard out and all of the buttons are revealed. I'm keeping the original black buttons, so it will be super easy transferring them all over into the new shell. These all loosely pop out with ease. Thankfully, all the buttons have little plastic pins on the edges, so there's only one way they can each go in, but I was extra careful to make sure they were all in the right spot. Rubber seals go over the top, and then the motherboard can be screwed back into the new casing to hold them all in. The last thing to swap over from the front piece is the minus button, held in place with just 1 screw. Now we basically have to do everything we just did in reverse and connect all the tiny ribbon cables back to the motherboard. I went ahead and reconnected the rail to the board before I start the next part, just because it's a little time saving. Everything up until this point has been pretty easy to do, but the next few sections can be a little tricky. The main part is connecting the battery back into the middle section with the adhesive, but before that we have to remove the adhesive and apply it to the new casing. Thankfully it came off pretty easily and I was able to stick it back in with almost no problems. I did kind of fold over a small section and I wish I had replacements, but I had to make do with what I had. Next, I pop off the ZL trigger from the old casing, which the spring flew out immediately, and I'm actually not doing this the right way. I just pried it manually from the case like this, when there are actually two small plastic pins that connect it on the back side that you can press in and release it, so I'm just happy it didn't break. I swapped in a couple of new springs from the kit, then applied quite a bit of pressure to this trigger button to get it popped back into place. I plugged the trigger cable back into the board and snapped it shut, and now I carefully place the two panels together, mindful of that little tiny trigger cable that has to fold sideways. Making sure the battery adhesive is stuck in the correct position, I secure the two panels together with the screws. Next, I place the battery in and press it firmly into place, and then snap the connector back to the board. Then I secure the back panel back to the rail. Now to make sure everything is in perfect alignment, all of the cables tucked in, and gently press the two pieces together until they snap. Instead of the stock tri-wing screws, I'm going to replace these with the standard Phillips screws that came with the kit, just to make it easier if I need to open them back up again. And just like that, with the last screw, this left Joy-Con is complete. This left Joy-Con probably took me about an hour and 30 minutes to complete, but I am so happy with the way it looks. Everything looks to be perfect alignment and all of the buttons are firmly in, but the last thing I need to do before I am fully done with this one is check all of the buttons to make sure they respond properly to input. After a quick test of the system settings, I can say everything's perfect. I'm so happy. The transparent plastic that shows all the components on the inside is just so cool looking, and I'm blown away by the quality. The weight and feel is almost identical to stock. I can say that the surface is just a bit smoother, which I prefer. It makes it a little bit easier to hold in your hand without them slipping. I think they just look fantastic paired with my Switch compared to the old white ones. Feels nice to know that I've customized something to my own personal taste instead of just being able to buy it from the store. I did record me swapping the shell for the Right Joycon, but the footage didn't turn out too well, and honestly it's about the same process, so I just stuck it into the bottom left corner. But the rest of the video is just me showing off how good they look. Big thanks to eXtremeRate for making great products. I'm not sponsored for any of the things in this video, I'm just so happy with the way that it turned out that I wanted to share. Just in case anybody else might want to do the same with their Joy-Cons. It was a fun little project, and I can say that I had a lot of fun doing it, and if you're willing to set aside a couple of hours to do this project, I totally recommend it. I also replaced the Joy-Con rail lock pins. My left Joy-Con wasn't locking into the rail, the little plastic piece had kind of worn away, and so I replaced it with these metal pieces I got, and it's a subtle but really nice change. Alright, thanks for watching.